Hi everyone, welcome to Value. So today we're going to look at an IPO. We haven't done this in a while because, I don't know, there just didn't seem to be that much exciting IPOs in the market that came on recently. So I've just been a bit busy, to be honest. But now I think I like this one, so that's why I'm going to do a bit more of a review on this one. And I think as it summed up, I think this is like a Nike of medical apparel. It's rather weird looking at a company that's selling apparel, and it's so focused on the medical side, yet at the same time it's just doing so well. So I think it's worth looking at this company. So this is a company that just basically sells medical apparel like scrubs. Like its core product line is basically scrubs, and it's doing really well. Like, if you look at the company, you'll be like, okay, this is interesting. Like, they look like a cool company. They are, doing kind of like uniform style kind of clothing that people will likely buy for work. And that's what's really good about it, because it's selling clothing to medical people who can, firstly, they can afford it, and secondly, they're going to want to buy it because when you go to work, you got to be dressed in a proper way. And these guys kind of make, I guess, going to work a bit more stylish maybe. And also, if work doesn't provide up to scratch kind of uniforms, then maybe you can just be able to purchase these ones from the site. But it's very difficult when you look at, if you were to look at the site, you wouldn't be able to interpret that much, but you can interpret, about what they sell, of course. So I think when it comes down to these kind of companies, the best way to really know what you're dealing with is really looking at the opportunity and the financials. The prospectus is one area that's going to let you know what, this company is all about. So to begin with, 1.5 million active customers. So that's the thing, active customers. So firstly, if you're in a medical job, you're likely in a medical job for quite a while. And then you're also going to be buying on a kind of a reoccurring basis, assuming you like the product, and so far it looks like people like the product. Net revenues, $263 million, and this is the crazy part, net revenue growth of 138%. Imagine that, you're selling clothing just for one certain industry, and it's just medical, right? Now imagine if these guys expand to other kind of industries as well. That kind of potential begins to look really interesting for such a company. Hey, it's kind of like you're selling, uniforms. Imagine you buying school uniforms. Every year that shop that sells those school uniforms is going to get a certain amount of business, and it's going to just repeat and repeat and repeat. And the cool thing about this company is once they've come up with these designs and everything, they can just sell them nationwide, they can go international, the margins are amazing as well. Gross margins, 72%. Imagine that, 72% for a company that sells apparel. It's as good as a software company, to be honest. And that's because they kind of mainly sell online. I think it's just like really cool looking at a company like this, particularly given its uniqueness as well, and given how successful it is as well. Like, if we look at the revenue growth from 2019 to 2020, 110 million in 2019, growing to 263 million in 2020. And you'd be thinking, does it stop there? No, it doesn't. So like, if we look at the 3 months for this year, comparing 2020 to 2021, revenues grew from 31 million for that 3 months to 87 million. So imagine that. So this, for 2021, these guys are basically looking at possibly 5 or even to 600 million in revenue. So can you imagine that? Imagine how, how explosive this growth is. And about this company, firstly, their revenues are growing quick. They've got a lot of reoccurring customers. The stuff that they supply is kind of quite essential in a sense, because it's in a medical field, and people need it for work. Of course, if companies supply the staff with stuff, their staff might not buy much, but apparently a very high percentage of people actually buy their own uniforms for work. I think I was reading a statistic here. So here we go. Over time, healthcare apparel purchasing has shifted from institutions to the individual, with approximately 85% of all medical professionals now purchasing their own uniforms. So look at that, right? 85% of people, medical professionals, purchasing their own uniforms. So if you get that kind of trend, then all of a sudden this company is like literally the whole Nike of medical, apparel. And that's just really, they're more just based in the States. And last year they kind of made some trials to kind of start selling in Australia and Canada and the UK. And you can imagine if that succeeds in a big way, then this company is just on the cusp of going global, right? Right now they're succeeding really, really well in the US, but they can also go global, and hence why I kind of see them as like this whole Nike version of, medical wear, right? But of course, they aren't limited to that. So here's some facts of the company in terms of sales. Most of the company's net revenue is generated by reoccurring styles, so they don't really have to create, like unlike Nike that has to constantly create new designs and new styles. This company just kind of generates most of the revenue from the same styles, because your uniform, you don't really want your uniform to be changing all the time, right? So there's really no need for them to do that. And yeah, like it means the R&D cost is actually much lower as well. So according to the prospectus, 82% of FIG's net revenue is generated by 13 core scrubwear styles, with the remaining revenue from limited edition. So like 82% from styles that they don't have to change. So imagine that. So that's kind of what makes it a really cool company, especially on an investing type of point of view as well. So FIGS is looking across other professions and other locations to grow. FIGS launched pilots in Australia, Canada, and UK in 2020. And yeah, that's just the beginning, isn't it? FIGS is exploring options in other professions where a uniform is required. The company estimates there are 40 million people working in areas outside of healthcare, like food service, hospitality, construction, and transportation. So you imagine that if they start to hit these areas as well, this company has so much potential. Like they are hitting this whole area where if they can get one area right, they can go to another area, and if they get that area right, immediately it opens so much opportunity as well. Because if you imagine, like when you find a new job and you have to decide what you have to wear for that job, it's kind of difficult because there's not really anything. It's like your company either supplies a uniform for you, or you don't know what to wear in a sense, because after that it's pretty, general clothing. So all of a sudden to have a company that kind of helps with the options. If a company doesn't supply it, you at least can go to FIGS and purchase some of their kind of clothing that they sell. So yeah, I think that's the kind of thing about FIGS. It saves you trying to decide what you have to wear in terms of what you would go to work in. And also, like, say like scrubs, you might not feel comfortable, getting it from the hospital or something like that if you work at the hospital, because other people have been wearing them too, and then they've washed them, and when you return them, they get mixed up again. So it's much nicer in a sense that you have your own ones, if you know what I mean. Everyone's more comfortable in their own clothes rather than wearing, someone else's clothes in that sense. So I can see why FIGS does really well, because they kind of add a little style, but also keep it really professional as well. And hence why, yeah, it just kind of really sings out to an investor like me that kind of looks for a company that, firstly, what they supply is, in a sense, it has a good moat around it. So that means it's kind of has that part about it that's essential. The growth is there, I like my growth companies, and the stability of this company is really there as well. Firstly, it's hard to find really nice growth companies, and when you find good growth companies, they're usually quite risky in what they do. Because say like Virgin Galactic, if they don't succeed in their flights, then there's a lot of trouble. But a company like this, it's already got really amazing revenues. It's already really growing really well, and it's already profitable. So for 2020, it earned $49 million. And then for the 3 months in 2021, $11 million. So you can already see that this company is going to be an extremely profitable company going forward. So it's not only stable, it's high growth, and it's in this area where if a recession was to happen, the effects aren't as large to them, because no matter what, people still have to work, people still want to buy the uniforms, and that's kind of what helps this company, no matter what the economic conditions are. And the medical field is one area where, no matter what happens, medical is required. So I can only just see this company continuing on their trajectory, where it's going. Firstly, I love companies that are really simple in what they do, and this company is very simple in what it does, but it does it really well. In terms of valuation, Bergs is looking at an IPO price of $22 a share, valuing at $4.4 billion. So at $4.4 billion, like it's actually on the kind of like it's kind of like in the middle. Because if we were to look at the revenues, and we were to go, last year was 263 million, but we got to look at this year's revenue, and if this year's revenue is anywhere between 500 to 600 million, all of a sudden this is about a $5 to $6 billion company. Very easy to kind of look on a straightforward basis. And yeah, like even if you have to buy at 7 billion, like if you're a long-term holder, even in 7 billion is not that bad for this company, because what they're achieving on these financial results are just extraordinary. Like that's kind of what I'm seeing here, like good margins, in a sector that's growing, like that they can just grow really well in. And then they've got also this large potential that they can actually, after the medical field's kind of, I guess, exhausted, they can take their kind of expertise of designing these kind of apparel and uniform type clothing, and then go to a different kind of industry as well, and then and then they're profitable, so they can kind of spend that money in generating a lot of business in those areas as well. So that's the really powerful thing about a company who's pretty set and pretty sustainable, that they can basically fund anything they want in the future. Of course, they may want to continue raising funds from shareholders, because that's what you come to the market for as well, for acquisitions or growing in a bigger way. And also, if you're doing clothing, you do have quite a high inventory cost, so there's a lot of capital that has to be changed around. But overall, I quite like this company. I think what they do is just brilliant. The stability, the risk isn't as bad. Like it's like I think usually to find a company that's growing at 130%, that's pretty interesting, right? You have to agree that you won't find many companies growing this quick. But of course, it could dramatically slow down once they begin to have all their options kind of covered. But it just seems like they're only just about hitting the international market now, and there's a lot of opportunity just going forward. And yeah, like I look at the financials, and if I'm trusting the financials to continue like this, I think you've got an amazing company that's I think possibly not a lot of people are going to know about this company because of what it does. Like, it's just not something you will see on an everyday basis. But if you look at the financials, like that's just fabulous financials that you just probably can't ignore. That this is definitely a really good company, just for holding into a longer term basis. Not only is it profitable, it's growing quick. It's at 4.4 billion valuation. So yeah, like even if this company goes up 50%, it's still worthy of buying on an IPO situation. But of course, we'll see what the IPO kind of comes up with. The market is pretty suppressed in its current situation, because there's a little bit of a worry about what's happening in terms of, yeah, like what the Biden government's doing. But yeah, I think on a standalone basis, I like what they do. The growth is nice. They're in a good industry. They're supplying stuff which is kind of essential. And if you look at statistics that 85% of people buy their own uniforms, then I think I'm relatively convinced that this is a company that I would personally want to buy shares in. Just one for you to consider as well. Let me know if you've got any comments or questions, just post them below. Until then, good luck investing, everyone, and we might check up on this company once it comes onto the market. Yeah, until then, goodbye.